All right, Than invited me out to shoot some podcasts or some videos with him, but I had some of my own questions for Than as well while I'm here. So get ready for all the tough questions.
Uh-oh, the toughies.
Yeah, real toughies. My first experience with Tidal Gardens and you is stumbling into videos of you and the greenhouse, many, many years ago. So my first question is, why the first greenhouse? What made you get into this?
Okay, so this was like probably early 2000s. And back then, like the math of making a facility was very different
Hmm.
because the prevailing technology at the time, especially for lighting, was either VHO fluorescence or metal halide. Metal
Hmm.
halide being like the gold standard of everything, all things light. And the cost of bulbs, the cost of electricity, all of that stuff played into this. The thinking at the time was a greenhouse is essentially like the perfect light on the perfect timer. And at scale, you don't need to have hundreds of metal halide bulbs. You can build a single structure and rely on sunlight for everything. Looking back at it, that sounds like somebody who's never actually built a greenhouse and grown coral before. Because if you look at my greenhouse now, it is barely a greenhouse at all. Like I have painted the entire outside of the greenhouse. Over all the tanks are floating canopies that house lots of LEDs. So basically, yes, we were able to for a long time grow coral under sunlight, but the the consistency of light was more important than free light
Hmm.
because Ohio, summertime and wintertime light, very different animals. And certain corals definitely don't appreciate that fluctuation in seasonality. So over time, it's basically not a greenhouse anymore.
Efficient but limiting factor.
Yeah, I mean, so for instance, we couldn't we could keep Acropora alive, but we could never keep Acropora as a sellable product
Hmm.
because 10 months out of the year it's going to be down colored. And for like a little patch of the summer, it would look great, and then it's back to turning brown because it's always in that state of flux. And if you've ever kept like an SPS tank before, you know that like the key to success is stability, and that is not possible in a greenhouse. Temperatures fluctuate. The obviously the photo period fluctuates. The photo intensity fluctuates. By the way, we have something called fall and spring here, where we get pollen. And in
Hmm.
a greenhouse structure, that's literally so. If you ever seen your car like in the spring, it has like that thick layer of pollen.
Hmm.
We're literally dumping like buckets of pollen into these tanks, and that stuff breaks down and does all kinds of stuff biologically to your tank.
Interesting.
So all of those things mixed together wasn't the greatest thing for all the corals that we wanted to try to keep.
So was the greenhouse your first attempt at coral propagation or selling coral, or
Uh,
did you do anything before that?
well, I mean, barely. I mean, the way that it all started was I had like a 120-gallon tank at my parents' house back then when I was still a student. And, at the time, not too many people were really even propagating. Uh, but if you're at all successful in the hobby, you quickly run out of space because the corals are growing into each other. And at the time, it's like, what do you do with those corals? Do you just cut them back and throw them away? Do you give them away? Do you try to sell them? And I was a business student at the time, and I was like, you know what would it look like if I scaled this up? Just working through the numbers. Let's see how big would it have to be an actual business, like a real boy business, right? Fortunately for me, being in business school, there were like business plan competitions.
Hmm.
I was already writing a business plan, right? Just to do the thought exercise, and that business plan won me like over $30,000 to
No
help get
way.
it all started.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. The money was nice, but the absolute best thing was getting the buy-in from friends and family
Mm,
Like this is not possible without a lot of help. Like
mm,
as much as people like to glorify like single person success stories, that typically does not happen. Like
mm-hmm.
you need a lot of help. It literally went from like my family and social circle being like, you have a dumb hobby, to this could be a working business because the business community at large said so, to the tune of $30,000 that said so.
Mm.
Like that's a very, very, very dramatic shift. And suddenly, even when like certain things were like struggling hardcore, I had that safety net of like family and friends to bolster that. Because there have been times where we lost like every coral in here, and I wanted to quit, and I get talked back into doing it by the same people that were trying to talk me out of it before the business plan thing.
Well, that's interesting. I would say with bulk reef supply that everybody I knew in the hobby told me that it was the dumbest idea ever, and I shouldn't do it for a
Mm-hmm.
variety of reasons. But there was some of my friends and family that supported me in ways they had never supported me, prior to that. Uh, and like when I had that support, everything I touched turned to gold. It was just like when people around you believe in you and want to help you succeed. And I would have never been able to do it by myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that entrepreneurship does get glorified as being like this, like this single visionary person
Mm,
that's like the figurehead of the company. They're the reason why all the success is. Like actually, at least in my experience, it definitely ain't me.
mm-hmm,
Like, uh,
mm.
no, I think in many ways, like this business has been successful in spite of, but you really have to have, well, I don't know about have to have, but the support system helps out so much.
Especially during the dark days. Like you said,
Or
you
like,
lost everything.
yeah, starting up, especially like startups are hard.
Mm-hmm. Fast forward a few years.
Yeah.
You have had Tidal Gardens. You got a YouTube channel that's doing well, and you got a greenhouse that you have converted into just a building, more or less, with LEDs. Why build out this brand new facility that you have a brand new farm that's in a proper building now? What made
Yeah.
you take that leap? Because it looks like a giant leap.
Yeah. To say that it's a giant leap, that's one word to call it. It is on such a scale that it has surpassed all of my dreams.
Mm,
Like it is so nice here. Like this is a fun backdrop and everything.
this
I
is the
pr-
building.
I promise you the rest of this building that I typically don't show on camera is even more ridiculous. It goes really hard.
When I walked in here today, it looks literally like somebody's dream came true. Like somebody had a vision for something that they very, very much wanted to create, and somehow they pulled it off.
Yeah. And I would say that it is the building of my dreams if my dreams were actually this ambitious. It surpassed all of my like hopes and aspirations. It's so so nice. Guys, I don't really like to work that much. I think that work inherently unpleasant a lot of times. And so if I have to spend 8 to 10 hours at any one place working, and I have the ability to affect that space, I want to create the space that I actually want to be working in.
Mm,
And hopefully that also translates to the employee so they get the benefit of my psychosis in this regard. Yeah, so a lot of what we've done here doesn't necessarily make financial sense. Like
no.
if I had some kind of oversight, they would say no. Somebody would have told me no by now.
Hmm.
I kind of don't. So I just go wild with this stuff. And a lot of the stuff does not make direct financial business sense. But I think it all does come around in stuff like overall satisfaction, employee retention, like all that stuff kind of helps. I guess like to more directly answer your question, it's like how this even started. We grew to a point where like the greenhouse was very constricting. There's only so much you could do. There's no bathroom. I mean, if you want to use the bathroom, it's either the tree or you have to walk to my house and use the bathroom there, that sort of stuff. It was janky. Like we would never have been able to like bring in a college intern. They're gonna take one look at the place and be like, this ain't it. So the biggest advantage to having like a dedicated like real building is that it smoothed all that stuff over.
Hmm.
And at that point, we've been doing like the greenhouse part of it for over a decade. There's so many lessons we learned about like system design and construction. And it's like, oh, well, we've tried all those things. Knowing what we know now, how would we do everything better and different? And we, for the most part, did. There's still stuff that I would like to try to experiment with and do differently, but for the most part, we scrubbed clean all kinds of mistakes that we had learned from for over like 10, almost 20 years.
Hmm. You know, my business partner used to describe it as when you try something, you fire a bullet, hits a target, then go find the cannon. If the cannon hits, go find the missile. Like as you progressively do things. So when you got your $30,000 in a grant and a bunch of people that believed in you and you launched, the greenhouse, turns out it was successful, that's essentially like your bullet. But now, man, what am I going to do with that success? And this building feels like representative of that.
Mm-hmm. It it's working out nicely. It definitely took some time because I mean there's a lot of stuff that happened during the construction process, and the construction process here took forever. And it's one of those things where it's always going to be a work in progress to a large degree, but there's degrees of that. I think that there was a lot of delays early. There was an entire pandemic at one point that like tripled the cost of raw materials. Had we done this post COVID, we would not have been able to afford it.
Mm,
Like I don't know if you guys remember this. This is kind of like, dating this video to some degree. But two by fours were like worth their weight in gold at one point. Like
mm-hmm,
the cost of materials had skyrocketed. So if it, let's just say, just to throw an easy to work with number, but had this building like cost $1 million just to make the frame, had we done it post COVID, it would have been like 3 million.
mm. I built a house during that, so I know all too well.
You know
Mm,
exactly what I'm talking. It is not
young
a.
young family going in there. So in that spirit, uh, I wrote down here, why is it so overbuilt? But what I'm
Mm,
really thinking about is like when you walk around here, it's form matches function. You know, it's where it needs to be done well. It looks right, feels right, doesn't just perform some kind of function.
it's a
You
little
know,
of both. It's a little of both.
well, I mean, the
One,
function first, but that's where
yeah.
most people stop because the form has a cost to it.
Yeah, so like and our form isn't like it isn't furniture polished, it's industrial polished.
Mm-hmm.
And the benefit there, because I think that a lot of retail stores would be very, very happy taking all of our aluminum stands and whatnot and just slapping siding on it to make it look like polished furniture, which you can very, very easily do.
Mm-hmm.
But a much more challenging task is to leave it all open and still be clean and beautiful. Because it turns out that, guys, we use a lot of devices. Those cords make snake pits everywhere.
Hmm.
So the length that we went to hide and organize wires here is crazy. Like if you went downstairs, you would have a hard time figuring out where stuff was plugged in. And that's a little eccentric, but the functional aspect of having everything open and accessible is that we kind of have to go under the assumption that uh, these things do require maintenance. There are devices that do go down, and all of this has to be easily detectable and replaceable and fixable on the fly. And so by going with like a super clean industrial design, it just makes like the day-to-day operation of this place much better. Worst thing I can possibly imagine is some people have these wonderful, gorgeous home aquariums, and then you look under their stand, and it's like, oh no, oh
Mm-hmm.
no, if something goes wrong in this stand, it's going to be hell to diagnose. Hell, like the plumbing is all over the place. It's going at weird diagonals. It's filled. Everything is salt creep. There's 80 different things plugged in, and the power strip is inches away from the water line. Stuff like that.
A friend of mine once said clean is synonymous with safe. A sump area is that. When you have all those cords and wires and plumbing and everything all over the place, unsafe. But when it's neat and tidy, it doesn't mean for sure it'll be safe. The chances just go way up. I didn't even think about it, but like, I'm walking around, I'm seeing all those open stands. Like in my mind, I can't even see any cords. And like, as somebody who just set up a bunch of tanks, for our own series, it's like you don't think about it, dude, but there are like 30 cords going into this thing. There's so many heater cords and probe cords and lighting cords and all this stuff. And then you think, well, there's only 18 pieces of gear, so there's maybe only 18 cords. But no, because there's a cord going like from the equipment to the power brick, and then another cord going from the power brick to the outlet. So there'd be like 40 cords. There's so many.
There's so many.
Oh,
And and to have all of that intentionally open and accessible, because I think the other thing that people don't factor in is there's not all chords aren't made equal. There are chords that you can hide, and there's other chords that you basically always need to have access to, like the one going to your pump, because that pump might have to go to a sink,
mm-hmm.
meaning you have to unplug that thing, fish through God knows what in terms of cable management to get that out. So we wire manage our pumps differently than for every other piece of wiring in here, so that we can completely remove all that stuff. It's a process. I mean, that's an entire art to itself.
I remember the first time I plumbed a tank, or I set up a tank, that I was proud of the way that we put it together, and I used zip ties. And man, it was pristine, dude. Day one, I was so proud of it. And then the first day that I realized that I needed to replace a heater or whatever, the
Cut all those zip ties, cut them all.
oh man, never do this again. Not only did like I feel like this just sucks, but I felt bad for anybody who watched the video of us doing it with zip
because
ties,
they
man.
did it all the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the idea of, thinking about it different for different equipment, but now I almost predominantly use all Velcro straps.
Velcro straps go a really long way, because if you want that tight look but still have it accessible,
Hmm.
but even in the way that you bundle multiple cords together, it's like the pumps don't go with these other things. The
Hmm.
heaters don't go with the pumps or the other things. It's like there is like a hierarchy to even how you organize these things.
I'll do it even now where, some things I'll Velcro the slack separately because I don't want to remove my power heads. I just
Mm,
want to put them in a bucket of citric acid next to the tank.
that
So I
makes
just
sense
need a
too.
couple of feet to do this, but
Hmm.
I don't want to see all that slack in there. So it's just the slack that's bundled up, and then I could just bundle back up again. But yeah, I I remember though, like my first video that I think I saw of yours where you were building this building was the plumbing. I happen to really like plumbing. Uh, and it's plumbing is one of those things where it's OCD for me, where if you do it right, it gives me a sense of satisfaction that like it, it shouldn't, but it does. I just like a well done plumbing job, just like
You
is
can tell
something's right
it's
in the world.
just different. It
Yeah,
hits different when it's done really well.
yeah. And I saw the way that you were doing it, and I'm like, this guy's so far further past me than I don't even belong in the equation. He's doing this so well.
So I didn't belong in that equation either, to be perfectly honest, because we hired a professional plumber, and it just so happened that this guy's like an artist in himself. Like
Mm.
he is so good. But
In my mind, this was all you.
it kind of is now, because early on, 20 something years of doing like the stuff in the greenhouse. It's like I kind of knew some things about plumbing. That's pretty good.
Hmm.
And then I hired this plumber, and he was just like, he's polite about it, but he's
Hmm.
like, yeah, yeah, okay, well, we can do room for improvement. And and the level of detail and technique that he was doing And really like working through the thought process, because I thought I knew a lot, and I guess I did. I knew more than most, but to see it done at that level is like, okay, here's X, Y, and Z where I screwed up, and I'll never make that mistake again. And there were just like these little details. It's like, okay, okay. And so now, like we do a lot of our new plumbing in the vein of his work and his design. But yeah, sometimes like you get overconfident in your own aptitude, and sometimes you have to bring in like the pros. It's like, oh, okay, there's levels to this game.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I would say that like we do really good plumbing. We don't have to call him up at, 250 an hour to do this stuff. Um, but yeah, that was like an eye-opening thing. I'm so glad that we went that route to get us going in this building, because so much was done at such a high level that now we want to maintain it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't mess around with with bad janky plumbing here anymore. It's unacceptable.
Okay, so to give you an idea, this goes beyond moving water around. Yeah, water around is one of them, but like you also have like geothermal cooling. You know,
Yeah.
you also have like a furnace-based heater. You know, for all
Yeah.
of the systems. Like, uh, we're not plugging in an electric heater anymore. So you're transferring heat and cooling through plumbing now as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's quite involved. And I was explaining to Ryan, it's like there's literally miles of Schedule 80 plumbing in this place. Like I don't even know where it stops.
Hmm, yeah. So if I want to say that I'm going to finish this one on this why it's overbuilt, why I don't even know how to describe this question actually. What allows you to implement it in a way that I would describe as not profit focused?
Hmm. Okay, so let I guess like let's take
This isn't
one
normal.
step back.
I've never seen this in any other install.
It's uncommon. I always throw this out there that uh overbuilt is a matter of opinion. Underbuilt is a matter of fact.
Hmm,
And I have run smack dab into that fact a couple of times.
mm-hmm,
And so even when I'm dealing with contractors and dealing with, people that have to do custom work for me, oftentimes it's like they always ask like the wrong question. They're like, "Tell me exactly what you need. Tell me exactly what you like." Like the electrician will say, "How much power do you really need?" And it's like the answer is yes. Like
mm-hmm,
like you're asking the wrong question. How much power can you get here? Like straight up, what will the power company say yes to?
hmm,
Like, and now the plumber, he sometimes will recommend other contractors in other fields for this project, and he straight up tells them whatever Than says, triple it.
hmm,
Whatever comes out of his mouth, triple it. Because there was there was things that I was asking him for while building this building, and he was thinking, there's no way you'll ever need that. There's no way that you'll ever need that kind of capacity. And within 2 months, all that capacity was used up. He said, had I known that this place was going to be like this, I would have put in a dozen more of whatever.
hmm.
Just because the project creep that happens here is so excessive. And a lot of it really just comes down to there's no way that this was ever going to be cost effective. This was always going to be an expensive project. Whether it was going to be a lot of money or a lot of money, it was never going to be cheap. So, like my parents, we have a couple of nice bathrooms in this building. They're a little over the top. My mom and dad especially, they're like, do we have to do it this fancy? It's a work bathroom in a coral farm warehouse. I'm like, parents, just to do the baseline plumbing of this place, to do like the septic system, it could literally be a hole in the ground and you're already in $30,000. Okay. Finish the job.
Hmm.
It's already expensive. You may as well make it nice at that point. And that kind of thought kind of got pervasive to just about anything that we do around here. Is like it's not going to be cheap. This place is too big for anything to be cheap. Like the flooring upstairs on this floor. It is not the most expensive vinyl tile flooring, but there's so much of it that the glue costs $2,000 in glue. So yeah, just do it right.
You know what this reminds me of is somebody once told me, don't go to a restaurant where the sign's burnt out because they don't care about their sign. They don't care about what's going on inside. And if the bathroom's dirty, you can know exactly what the kitchen looks like because this is an area you can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, an area you can't is so much worse. And they're right. And I paid attention to this, and sure enough, man, the places where the light bulbs are burnt out on the sign, the food generally is not good, and the bathroom, the story unravels. Uh, but I think about this in terms of like lots of people would see, overbuilt here, right? But really, what you could see is somebody who really cares about what they're doing. And if they care this much about the design, how much do they care about the animals that are going to be, delivered to you, and how do you care for them? And so, like, and if I apply that to all of the, farms and wholesalers and everything I've seen, the ones that look like the bare minimum, they treat the animals like the bare minimum as well. And the ones that are clean, the two cleanest places I can think of right now is here in Route 66.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I've never been. What
Okay.
was that like?
Dude, you walk in there and it's pristine. It's clean. The walls are clean. The floor is clean. The tanks are clean. They're using those big white fiberglass bins, but they're white
Mm-hmm.
because they're clean, under,
Interesting.
in, around. Because of that, you don't see pests and stuff all over. The egg crate's clean.
Is that in California?
Yeah, it's like LA area.
Okay.
Stop in.
Yeah, I've never been. Okay.
And the animals are healthy, the photography's clean, like somebody cares about these animals, because it's they're almost synonymous. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, for us, we have. I mean, I don't think any place is perfect. We're certainly not perfect. There's certainly a lot of room for improvement, but our goal is like long-term aquaculture,
Hmm.
and like small problems on the long term propagate into like massive, awful problems. So we have to. I mean, we don't bring in like mega giant shipments of coral and just move things in and out. Like we would make a lot more money doing stuff like that. But from day one in the greenhouse, the idea was to bring in really nice specimens and grow them forever. Like that
Hmm.
was just kind of the model. And we buy a shockingly small amount of coral. It's it really is trying to just find if I found like six nice corals a year to add to a collection, I'd be perfectly happy with that. Most of our shopping that we do is really just on stuff that we can't propagate long term at all. Uh, but going back to that whole thing about just being like overbuilt and caring for the animals, like to do what we do for decades, the amount of effort that really takes is really substantial, and that's why I respect the hell out of a lot of coral farmers and people that have been doing this for like the longest time. And you know the list, right? There's people that have been around for a really long time that are high profile. The amount of effort that takes is astonishing. So yeah, I I would do it no other way.
There you go. All right. So now you get just farm. You have the greenhouse still going. What's your real goal for TidalGardens.com, and how will you know when you've hit it?
Oof. That is something that I struggle with just a little bit professionally because um, sometimes it's hard to appreciate where you are currently, and obviously I would like to make more sales, get a little bit bigger, and do all those things, right? But the thing is, like sometimes more is just more.
Hmm.
I'm trying to enjoy exactly where we are and polish up what we're doing, and if we get a little bit bigger, great. But to be some giant mega farm, I don't know if that's really ever going to be part of the game plan or not. Because I was talking to like one of my friends that's into real estate, and they are like exploding at the seams. They're acquiring new properties. They're like stressed to the max, leveraged to the max, trying to like make all these real estate plays. And I kind of go back to that sometimes more is just more thing because they have to deal with these tenants, and every now and again you run into an absolute psychopath.
Mhm.
And the larger your enterprise becomes, it's like there's like the number of psychopaths just kind of scale. And so it's nice that you're like making more money, right? But after a while, that difference in the amount of money that you're bringing in really isn't life changing. But tripling the number of psychopaths you have to deal with, that is life changing. It is kind of this balancing act of like, how big do I really want to grow this versus we've got a good thing going and let's just polish up what we do. So it's like those two like diametrically opposed forces there.
So there's lots of people when you hear like, we call it a BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal, your 5 year, 10 year goal.
Uh
And
huh.
and a lot of people will put it as some kind of monetary goal, double the business or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. I remember our first one is, you know, we wanted to be the best, at providing high quality aquarium goods and information that helps people be successful. It's written almost exactly like that. And then in tiny little letters, we wrote the biggest because we felt like the biggest was probably representative of the fact that we did this well,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't the goal. The
Mm-hmm.
goal is we wanted to be the best, but how do you know when you are the best? It's kind of up in
Mm.
there.
Interesting.
But like, I think there's other ways, like, pretend you never grew it another dollar. What would it look like and say I met my goal, man? Like I accomplished this. I'm so proud.
I would think that I've already gotten there because I finally like made a place that I'm really happy working at. Um, I've
Dude, oh,
had
let me just stop you right there. For anybody to be able to build their dream and then in real time recognize they've achieved it and allow themselves to appreciate it is a really rare find, man. So
that's a
bravo.
that's a W on its own right there.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not something that most people are always chasing the next thing. You can't stop and just say like, life is great. I've done what I
It's a
wanted
nice
to.
gig. Yeah, it's a
Soak
nice
it up.
gig. Like my commute to work is like 400 feet walk into my backyard, and I come into this. It's like it's not bad, and
Bravo.
I get to hang out with Ryan.
There you
Yeah, it's like who's got it better than me right now?
go. Oh yeah, I wish I could live up to that. Okay, next one here is.
Actually,
Oh, go ahead.
I'll add a little bit extra onto that about constantly goal chasing
Okay,
because there are certain metrics that I have kind of just like mentally had. And let's just talk about the YouTube channel for instance. For
that
instance.
was my next question.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
I'll just read out real quick.
All right.
What's your real goal for Tidal Gardens YouTube? How will you know when you've hit it?
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Perfect segue. So there was a time where I had an idea of like the subscriber count that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
There was a metric for the AdSense revenue for for the channel. And literally every single time that I achieved the like see that 100,000 subscriber plaque right up there? Like every single time I achieved those milestones, I felt nothing
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like nothing has changed. And there was just like the let's say the money involved. I went from it's like thinking, oh, I got my first revenue check from YouTube of $100. If I could grow this to $1,000, that pays a bill now. Like this is going to be a big time thing if I could just get to $1,000. And one day when my AdSense revenue was $1,000, it's like, meh, nothing. It just nothing moves the needle at all. So I don't really try to get caught up in a lot of those metrics anymore in that sense. The sort of stuff that I challenge myself with now is what may be even a healthier thing is like stuff that I can directly control. So it would be I would like to get out more videos because I'm currently bad at that. Like our channel is the slowest thing ever in actually producing content as a YouTuber. So that's the sort of stuff that I would just like to see get better. And that over time for us has been this process of just trying to remove friction. So make it easy to hit record. I built this entire podcast studio to make it easier just to hit record. And because I will make up every excuse to not make videos. And so that's kind of like one thing that I'm trying to beat.
One of the things that kind of comes to mind is like quality over quantity, right? I saw this, I stumbled upon this channel where this guy does black and white photography and he teaches people, behind like the art of it doing this. And I watched his trailer and, he says his name and, this is what he does. And he's like, if you're looking for top 10 lists and gear reviews, this is not the channel. We don't do that here. If you're looking for videos that come out, on time every week, this is not the channel. The best that I have available to do for you is I'm able to put one excellent video out once a month, you know, and sometimes I miss that even because I want to do something spectacular that I'm proud of and that has meaning. And like that is a worthy goal,
Yeah, I
right?
I can sympathize with that completely.
Yeah. And so like, if you can do one thing that impacts people's lives in a way that is meaningful and powerful, and not necessarily the most people, but the people that you happen to be talking to, that you're most equipped to be able to engage and help. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes like for at least for me, it's I really don't want to put out content for content's sake. I want to actually have something to say. And sometimes, like, especially if you've been doing this for over 10 years on YouTube, it's like sometimes you don't have a whole lot to say that you haven't said before. And
Mm-hmm.
there's just not a lot of things going through my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that is not the fertile ground to be making tons of YouTube content that takes hours and hours and hours. And just as like a slight tangent, but I get hit up to be a speaker at a lot of events. And I really hate to tell all these nice people no all the time, but simply I have nothing to say. Like and I always promise them I was like when I actually have something that I want to communicate out there, I would be happy to be a speaker at your show. As it is, I got nothing. I am so sorry.
I feel like pressure in those types of events because we've we've shared so much, via YouTube
Hmm.
that I feel like something in person needs to be special.
Like even more, like
Yeah.
extra, extra, extra that you haven't said in a video before.
Yeah. And so, well, I see, and I've talked to some other, people who do these presentations, and I'm like, yeah, the reason I say no most of the time is because I know it will take me at least 2 weeks to put something together.
Oh, it takes me.
Yeah.
You know what the worst part about it is? I can't relax until I've given the talk.
Yeah.
Like until that time comes, I always think about. It's always on my mind. It's always so. I end up spending like a month trying to prepare for this,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why like whenever I do finally agree to do a talk, I ask for first speaker, first day.
Mm. Oh.
So I will get in there. I will be the leadoff hitter for that event, and like there have been times where I was scheduled literally before general admission gets to come in. So only
Mm.
like VIP and early bird tickets even got into the venue.
Hmm.
Like the line is gathering as I am finishing my talk, so to speak. Uh, Simply because it's like I need to get this obligation off of my chest entirely before I can mentally like be ready for the rest of this show.
You and me in the same universe. So, I will tell you that I've changed in this. So this is coming from somebody that failed every speech class, mostly because I wouldn't show up. I was so afraid of being in front of my classmates, man, much
Uh-huh.
less a crowd, right? And YouTube, if you watch back to 2008, it's my hands because I'm afraid to be in front of the camera. So a lot of things have changed since then. But like when I
A
did that
little bit.
first presentation, man, it was terrifying. Like,
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, man, it was. Uh, I don't know, man. It's just, I'm preparing for this, and I just really want it to hit, and like I want it to be better than YouTube, and uh, it was better than I could have ever hoped. And if I'm being honest, man, but it took effort. And when I
For
say two
sure.
weeks, I don't know how long it really took me, but it took me a while to develop something worthy of showing in person.
The anxiety for me is all in the preparation.
Yeah.
The actual delivery of it, and maybe this is just me being like, I don't know, a stone cold sociopath, but it's the actual delivery of the presentation, not a big deal.
I get over it in about 14 seconds, as
There
soon
you
as my
go.
mouth opens up. Maybe
Perfect.
a minute and a half, but
Yeah, but leading up to it, easily a month, and there's like this base layer of anxiety that just will not go away until that talk is done.
okay. So now on YouTube, right? So people have seen me deliver information in a variety of ways. You've seen me do it, via top 10 mistakes, which is just kind of like freewheeling it. You've seen me do it live. You've seen me do it in super heavily scripted. Like of the video contents, of those, I like the scripted ones the best
Mm,
because it has the most information. I've put the most thought into how the puzzle pieces fit together, and it's the most information dense. So it's what I would watch because
mm-hmm,
I don't, like I don't have a limited amount of time, you know? Now, what I really like the most though, because I also like these lives, which is all the way the other direction, which is, hey, we're just going to be able to give the nuance. You're going to be able to have a real discussion. There's time to share the nuances of something that would get overlooked otherwise. But what it turns out, what I really like the most is the seminars. Uh, and I'm gonna start to do more of them. I'm gonna do one this year at Orlando Reef, and I think I might do some more, because what this allows me to do is it's not scripted, but it's presented. I have like a PowerPoint,
mm-hmm,
lack of better words, but like I know where it's going.
mm-hmm.
And why this is of value, why somebody would give me their time. It's going to be an hour. Some of these things have been two.
Mm-hmm.
And but you're going to come away with something of value. And I've put a lot of effort to make sure that I deliver on that because I don't want to take an hour of somebody's time for nothing. And so, but what happens is in real time, I can look into the crowd and see when people are excited about something specific, and I can stop, slow down, and give the nuance, right? And so it gives me an opportunity to be like a little bit scripted, but also like real and live and with human beings and interacting with them in a way that you just can't on YouTube.
That is interesting.
So I'm gonna give it a shot this year.
It's
I've,
like I
I've
was
done
like
like
just
three of
thinking
them.
that's very empathetic of you.
Well, you know, I think that that's what actually, people ask me before, like, what makes me good at YouTube and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the word I've always used is empathy. And it's not like you think of empathy as like, sad, something happened to somebody, and it's usually really tragic. But really, what it is just crawling in somebody's mind and feeling like what it's like to experience what they're experiencing. And it can be as simple as I got algae in my tank. If you can crawl inside somebody's mind and say, I've just spent $1,500 setting this thing up, I'm so excited about it. And now it's just like covered in this cyano or slime, and it looks like crap. And I'm embarrassed to show my friends and whatever. Now, when you understand what that person is feeling right now, you also know like how important it is to solve. And you can solve it for them and know exactly how they'll feel when they solve it, and use that for me is the energy to go put into solving it. So like you really need to think about what it feels like to be those people, and like even the people that are in the audience of one of these shows. What does it feel like to be there? They came for a reason.
Hmm.
They watched Thein, they watched Ryan on these videos. Like, I want it to deliver, man. It should be better. So I'm going to try to do that, try to be better. But
Nice.
yeah, we deviated here from the real goal of YouTube. Uh, Next one here is, when this is all done, what would you like to be known for? Like 20 years from now, people are thinking back about Than and what he's achieved. What would you like to be known for?
To make caring for corals easier or better understood. I think that was always like the number one goal of all of my even my media presence. Well, I mean, most of my stuff is like voiceover. It really hasn't been me on camera like showing, oh, this is my facility, and like so this is like quite a departure, like the whole podcasting thing lately. But like 90% of my videos don't really have me in it. It'll have like my voice, and I really wanted the focus to be on the corals, and I would be super happy if I was in some way helpful in making people do this hobby better for the animals. That's always been my number one focus. It's really been more about like the animal focus thing more than anything else. Because I think just historically, like pet industries, it tends to be a little bit too focused on just like the novelty of having such and such animal and not enough on the actual caring of the animal. So, yeah, I think that's definitely on the side of history that I want to be remembered for, is just to be that advocate for animals.
I read this thing about David Brooks, and he was talking about, eulogy virtues.
Hmm.
And like, what do people say when you're gone? Like when you stand up there at your eulogy, and it's a little dark, but like, you know, how do you want them to talk about you? And very rarely do you see people like, oh, he built that great business, he made that much money or whatever. They talk about how you treated people and what you did for them, and how they made you feel when you were around them, right? And like ever since I heard that, it's just like basically live for your own eulogy, because you'll also be more happy in real time because that's basically what you want. And so I think about this in a little bit frame of mind of, what do you want to be known for? And I guess I just want to be known for helping people, whatever task. And it may seem like, I should like tell the people at BRS, like, you think that you're selling them a pump or a power head. And I think that we need to be thinking about it like you're going to bring joy to people's lives and make them better. You have the ability to increase the quality of their life. People always laugh at me and say that's crazy. Well, like, if your passion was golf and I sold you a club that shaved 2 strokes off your game, 100% I increased the quality of your life.
Hmm.
Because this thing that you love and you enjoy doing, and brings you joy, you just got better at, you know?
Absolutely.
And so, like, when you deliver a pump on time, and it arrives on Friday and not Monday, man, I increase the quality of your life.
Hmm.
And that's like the simplest way to think about it. But like, how, when you install it correctly and it looks nice and it's done and you don't experience the problems that everybody else has, you know, and like I think of yours, like when I saw the video, you've heard me talk about this video 100 times, but when I saw the video on Blastamusa likes the dark, right? You increase the quality of my life because this is a coral that I've struggled keeping. And I just didn't understand that, like, not only is this a low light coral, man, I would almost describe it as, ultra low light.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it solves my need of better caring for said coral,
Yeah.
right?
More of these animals will survive now.
Hmm.
Anybody who's watched this now, we've increased the quality of, like, the chances they're going to be successful with those things.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, for me, I remember the very first time I bought one. I don't know, man. More horsepower is more better, right? This is, 2004, but like I didn't, it wasn't doing well, so I kept moving it up. I don't know. You know, if I had just known, if I had stumbled, well, your video didn't exist at the time, but if I had stumbled and it did exist, oh, I just would have put it in the dark, it would have been fine. indirect
Yeah.
light almost. So yeah, I think about it that way. Next here is give me two things that you should care about but don't.
Oof. Things that I
Or maybe
don't
one.
care about that I
Something that you
should.
should care about but don't, or at least other people think you should care about but just don't. Not important to you.
Hmm. I think that there are like certain trends that kind of happen in like the coral selling game, and I I stay a lot more vanilla. I tend to not like chase as hard into some of those as much as others because
You're talking about like the super elite names and
well,
and
I
like
mean
the
to some degree, yes. I mean we do, there are colorful names on our website. Uh, Sometimes it's really just for our organization more than anything else, to be perfectly honest. Like, so for instance, like if you just were to describe a certain zoanthid, green tentacles, orange ring, purple mouth, that could be like a dozen different zoas. But if you had a specific goofy name, it's like, oh, I know that one. We have it over here. That helps.
well, there's a difference between, Bob Marley's Roster Revenge, which I just made up, or, which is, green this, yellow that, purple this, polka dots, whatever. Uh, or because it's Bob Marley's Roster Revenge, it's also 1,500 bucks. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So ours is definitely more on the organizational aspects of it. Um, so there's that aspect of the trend. Also, just there are trendy. So what one trend that's going to be coming up here, you guys, uh, is a lot of Acropora speciosa. So it's a species of Acropora. I think it might be Malaysian. They are very new to the scene, and they're very challenging to get a hold of because I think the import of them is murky at best.
Mm,
Uh, and so a lot of the photos you see online of Speciosa look crazy, but a lot of stuff had to go into that craziness. Like some of the photos are heavily doctored because a lot of Speciosa, they're kind of tan looking. So to
mhm.
get all these crazy colors, either you're doing something insane on the care end or you're doing something a little bit crazy on the photography end. Not really sure. But on top of that, my understanding is that's a challenging coral to the point that it is a bad product.
Mm.
We might not be able to grow it. We might not be able to color it up. We might not be able to ship it to you and have it survive. Those three things is like cookie cutter bad product.
Mhm.
We probably will not be chasing that trend, even though a frag of that goes for like $900.
Okay, so this is a good point as like, you could debate all the merits of buying farmed corals or wild corals or blah blah. Like maybe you care about the environment, maybe you don't. Maybe you care about like the animals and they're taking them out of their home environment, maybe you don't. But one of the things that almost everybody does care about is themselves. Uh, and so in this spirit, what yours just told me is if I can't grow it, I'm not going to sell it because the chances that you're going to be able to grow it aren't high enough for me to feel okay doing it.
Yeah, it's you're it's I think a lot of folks Um, I mean, who knows? Maybe there. I know for a fact there are plenty of SPS keepers that do this better than I do,
Hmm.
right? But I can't realistically do that well enough to even flip these things, because I think a lot of folks would be perfectly happy um, as a coral seller just bringing it in and flipping these things. But yeah, it's that this is just not a trend that we're probably going to be hitting in its peak or anything like that.
This is one of those things, though, too, that just continuing on this little bit about propagation is if you get the coral from somebody who farmed it, that means that this thing grew in artificial light, in an artificial environment. It thrived to the point that it could replicate itself to the point that somebody could multiply them and actually sell them, right? That means it's probably going to do the same for you at home. The wild stuff, who knows?
Yeah, it is definitely a crapshoot when it comes to the wild stuff. Um, there are some like pros and cons to everything, I guess. But largely, I would say that stuff that's aquaculture, that's actually grown down onto whatever substrate that you're farming on, that all does make it like a big difference. I mean, sometimes sometimes I see photos where people receive coral, and you can tell that that thing was glued hours before it was shipped. That's not wonderful technique.
Mm.
There's a lot that could go wrong there.
The tissue is still healing, and it's going through,
Yeah.
FedEx.
And it might have just gotten singed by the cyanocrylate just affixing itself. That's like an exothermic reaction. Sometimes a lot of corals just simply get burned by the gluing process. So a lot of our stuff, I mean, you've seen our farm downstairs. Like we have a lot of growth going on, and it's only when like stuff is really adhered that we really want to be sending anything out. Because like again, the worst thing that we run into is like just DOA claims that could have been avoided, and yeah, those are emails and calls we just don't want to be getting.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. When are you going to embrace short format videos?
Oh gosh.
We talked about this in a previous episode.
Yeah, very unlikely. It's something that we might just like put our little pinky toe into and just dabble with. Uh, I struggle making content in that way. Like, I don't think that I'm that entertaining or funny.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some folks out there that in this industry that do it so well, and I'm just like, it never would have occurred to me to come up with that.
Okay, I'm going to make a request. Okay.
Okay.
There are those of us who like funny. I imagine not many of them are watching this. There's people that like learning something. They're like people that want to know about the animal before they buy it or afterward, right? And I have stumbled into many of your videos about a specific animal that may be 20 minutes long, right? I don't always have 20 minutes, right? It's probably the best thing to do, you know. But when I think shorts, I don't mean, goofy Than, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you know, like I don't know, doing whatever goofy Than does. Uh
Yeah, I don't even know.
yeah. I mean, if you only gave me a minute or two to talk about Acroporo, what would I have to say? And not the same dumb thing that everybody says, medium to advanced reefer. Like, what does it even mean? Like I think about this in terms of like, you know, uh, Antheas. Like, okay, so, you know, Elliot taught me this one. Purple Queen Anthea, right? Expert only fish, right? Okay, expert only doesn't mean that it's hard. It just means you have to do these specific things that are different than the other
Mm.
ones, right? And so what he did for me is he got them right when they landed because they're prone to starve fast.
Mm-hmm.
They just have a high metabolism. Got them right when they landed, and then he fed them baby brine shrimp, in LA, and got them eating baby brine shrimp, and then eventually, it got him to eat pellet foods and just kind of mix that in with it. And once they were eating pellet foods, he shipped them to me. And now the only thing I need to do to have this expert only fish is I need an auto feeder that goes off every other hour during the day and filtration to match.
Mm-hmm.
But they all thrive. So it's
Interesting.
not expert only. It's just you do these two things.
So like a short form of that would be like just like 5 tips to keeping Purple Queen Antheus.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. 45 seconds, and you're out the door.
Yeah. Or when he shipped me, this is a tired story for anybody who's watching, but like he shipped me the Moorish idol.
Mm-hmm.
I was mad. Like, I don't want to kill this thing on camera. I don't want to put this in the tank and then have it disappear.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't disappear. It's 5 times the size it was when he gave it to me, and he's like, dude, it's just a fibrous diet. They get constipated and die if you just feed them mice or shrimp all the time. They just get constipated and die because their systems are designed for a high carbohydrate, high fiber diet. So we feed them those algae extreme pellets and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen to them. Yeah, and like it's not expert only. It's just do something. You know,
Just do the right thing. Just and don't do the wrong thing.
Okay, well, the four wheel signal gobies, right?
Mm-hmm.
These things almost always starve to death. Yeah,
Never had one.
they're like little. I just love them. I can't help it. But they're like these little guys sand sift, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
have these two little spots on the side, and when they get spooked, they turn sideways, and the spots go up, and it kind of looks like a crab, and then whatever gets scared and runs
That's cool.
away.
That's cool.
And I watched it in my tank. I had this hawkfish, longnose hawkfish that liked to eat gobies, and then when he got close, he would turn sideways, and he'd get scared and he'd run away. All right, so it's cool, but like they are not expert only. They're just a pain in the butt because you got to spray food into the sand every day. Okay, so you'd get like a particle food and spray it on, turn off the pumps and put it on top of the sand,
Mm.
and they'll sand sift all that stuff out.
Oh, interesting.
So it's simple if you are willing to do that every day.
But you have to do the
Most
work.
people are not.
Yeah.
But now I know, and I can make an informed decision. Like, so what about coral, man? Who's going to do this for coral? So personally, I want to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I'm not the right person. You are, right? And so I just think for me, try 5 of them and see what happens. Think of the most unique ones and
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
give it a shot because I think that also work really well on your product pages.
Mm.
You
Yeah,
know,
it could. Yeah.
just real quick way because at 20 minutes a pop, the other ones I got an hour to learn about 3 things. It's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Okay.
good point.
Uh, the most important question of the day.
Uh-oh.
What drives your sense of fashion? Because you
Oh
are the
God.
most well-dressed reefer in the entire hobby.
So the whole classic men's fashion thing is literally the only hobby that I have remaining. I think everything else I've kind of like turned into a business,
Mm,
and in many ways that's kind of co-opted the fun out of it.
mm,
So like I don't have a home aquarium. I'm good on that. I don't do photography or videography for fun.
mm.
I've never break out my phone and shoot a picture, never. It's like these things are no longer in my head. These things are no longer fun and recreational for me. So this is like the last vestige of a fun hobby that I do literally with no expectations of anything. It's just something that I enjoy. I like reading up on it. I like I just like the in-depth nature of how deep you can go with men's fashion, down to the fabrics and all that stuff. And it serves like again, just there's no ulterior motive. It's just something that I enjoy.
Right. True or false? Than has flown to Hong Kong to have a suit made tailored just to him.
Oh, no, well, technically no, but stuff from Hong Kong has flown to me
Okay.
for a custom suit. In fact, there's already something in the works already. So as far as like traveling overseas and stuff, the problem why that doesn't work for me is that you have to go back for multiple fittings.
Mm,
So sometimes so for example, a famous shirt maker in Paris is called Charvet. And it's like a Charvet shirt. It's $400. That's an expensive shirt. But what's really expensive is the 4 trips you have to go back to Paris to get that thing sized.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And God
problem.
forbid you eat a couple extra tacos.
Your, your
uh,
your boy has gained weight before, and your custom clothing does not lie. It's like,
yeah.
oh, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you got big. Something's got to change. But I guess like the one thing that drives like my interest in classic men's style is that uh it it's not trendy. Like the stuff that's cool, it's been cool for like 100 years basically.
Mm.
And so it's possible to buy something nice and just wear it forever. Like it just sticks. And I guess like one sort of like self-serving purpose is that in a funny way, like clothing is a communication technology that it just communicates to people how you'd like to be treated in public.
That is
And
true.
it changes the world around you in the way that you interact with other people. And it is not a money thing. It's not a money thing because my tailor, good thing she's not watching this, but my tailor, her dad is wealthy, wealthy, and he does not like to dress up. In fact, he likes to do the opposite so that when he goes into public, um, it's kind of like they don't treat him very well, let's just say, because he's not dressed nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And in the back of his mind, it's like, oh, haha, I'm kind of getting over on you because I'm actually rich. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. So for this bit to work, you have to go out into public and get mistreated,
Mm-hmm.
and that somehow retroactively makes you feel better that you're getting a.
Okay, you know what's funny?
That customer service rep doesn't care.
If I go car shopping, I will intentionally dress like I can't afford the car.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I don't want to be bothered.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's funny. And I also worked in a like a high-end restaurant at one point in time, and we would always joke that you could tell the real wealth because there was holes in the jeans. Yeah,
Interesting.
I mean, it would be, all the people that came in, that were, like, I don't know, they had a certain standard, right? You could tell they're kind of trying to reach something. And then there was the people in there that had the hole in the jeans, and then they'd order like, an $800 bottle of wine to go with their holes, so it is like everybody has, a different perception. And when I say that, like, those people come in, I don't mean dressed like you, because you're dressed nice, but it looks like something like a passion. I'm not trying to present like wealth,
It'll be
right?
like a
Right?
giant name brand sort of thing.
Yeah, like yeah,
Yeah, there's different styles for sure about that.
yeah, some yeah. Anyway, I assume the whole hobby wanted to know. I wanted to know. All right, so we learned a whole bunch of things about Thein and Tidal Gardens today. I did certainly anyway. So thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you soon.